The scent of jasmine and thyme hung heavy in the air, masking the nervousness that permeated every corner of our pack house. Outside my window, the forest breathed with anticipation, leaves rustling despite the absence of wind. The mating ceremony happened once every decade, when the moon reached its fullest potential, and the barrier between fates thinned enough for true pairs to recognize each other. For unmated females between 18 and 30, attendance wasn't just expected. It was mandatory. Yet here I was, locked in the tower room where dust motes danced in the slanting afternoon light, my fingers tracing patterns on the weathered windowsill. Below, I could see the other girls from our pack being adorned in silks and perfumes, their laughter floating up to me like fragments of a life I wasn't allowed to touch. You understand why this is necessary, don't you, Lyra? My stepmother's voice had been honey-sweet when she'd led me here this morning, her hand firm on my shoulder. With your condition, it would be cruel to let you participate. False hope is the most painful kind. My condition was simple. I was different. In a pack of wolves where strength determined everything, I was the anomaly who had never fully shifted. My partial transformations were considered shameful, a sign of weak bloodlines and diluted magic. My father had protected me while he lived, but since his death 5 winters ago, Morgana had been quick to remind me, and everyone else, of my place. I tugged at a strand of my silver-white hair, so unlike the rich, dark tones of the rest of the pack. Another sign of my otherness, another reason to keep me hidden. On my bedside table sat my only inheritance, my mother's gold pendant engraved with a full moon embracing 3 stars. Remember Starlight? She had whispered before illness took her when I was just 8. Even the smallest constellation can guide in the darkest night. I'd worn it every day since, finding strength in its gentle weight against my skin, a reminder that I was my mother's daughter, even if I couldn't be the wolf the pack wanted. The clamor below grew louder as twilight approached. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, feeling the vibration of drums beginning to beat, calling, summoning. Not for me. Never for me. A soft knock at my door startled me. Lyra? It was Senna, my only friend. Her voice hushed. Are you decent? I don't have much time. I rushed to unlock the door, glancing nervously at the stairwell beyond. If Morgana finds you here... You shouldn't be here, I whispered, pulling her inside. They'll be calling for the procession soon. Senna's dark eyes flashed with determination as she thrust a bundle into my arms. I'm not letting you miss another ceremony because of that witch. The bundle unfurled into a simple but beautiful dress of deep emerald, the color of forest shadows. Senna, I can't. Yes, you can. Her fingers were already working at the buttons of my faded gray dress. Your father was an elder. You have as much right to be there as anyone. You know it's not that simple. I clutched my pendant. You were 17 then. We're adults now. Senna's voice softened. Besides, this isn't just any gathering. The Alpha King himself is attending. My heart stuttered. What? King Darius never attends regional ceremonies. Something's changed. Rumors say he's finally looking for his queen. A queen? I almost laughed at the thought. Alphas mated with other alphas, or at least strong betas, not with half-wolves who couldn't even complete a shift. Still, as Senna helped me into the dress, something fluttered in my chest. Not hope, I'd learned to kill that particular emotion long ago, but curiosity. The Alpha King was legendary, his pack the strongest in the 5 territories. Tales of his ferocity in battle and his unwavering protection of his people had reached even my isolated corner of the world. There, Senna said, stepping back to appraise her work. She'd braided sections of my hair and pinned them back with small amethyst clips that caught the dying light. Now you look like what you are, an elder's daughter. I touched the fabric, softer than anything I'd worn in years. How will I even get past Morgana? Senna's smile turned mischievous. She's too busy ensuring her own daughters outshine everyone else. The side entrance by the kitchens is unguarded. Wait until you hear the 3rd horn, then slip down the servants' stairs and follow the stream path to the ceremony grounds. The distant sound of the 1st horn made us both jump. I have to go, Senna said, squeezing my hands. Promise me you'll come. After she left, I stood frozen. the dress rustling around my ankles. The second horn sounded, its deep tone vibrating through the floorboards. My fingers found my mother's pendant again, tracing its familiar contours. Even the smallest constellation can guide in the darkest night. When the third horn called, I was already descending the narrow servant staircase, my heart thundering louder than my footsteps. The forest welcomed me like an old friend, branches shifting to allow dappled moonlight to guide my path. I followed the stream as Senna had instructed, its gentle gurgling a counterpoint to the increasingly loud drums and voices ahead. I hesitated at the edge of the clearing. Hundreds of wolves from neighboring packs filled the sacred space, their energy palpable even from a distance. At the center stood a massive bonfire, its flames reaching toward the full moon overhead. And there, on a raised dais, sat the Council of Elders, and him. Even from this distance, there was no mistaking the Alpha King. Darius Nightshade commanded attention without effort, his presence a gravitational force that seemed to bend the very air around him. His shoulders were broad beneath a cloak of deepest midnight, his face carved with the kind of authority that came from both birthright and battles won. But it was his stillness that struck me most. While others shifted and spoke around him, he remained a point of absolute focus. I shouldn't be here. This was madness. I took a step back, ready to retreat into the shadows, when a group of laughing females pushed past me, entering the clearing. The movement thrust me forward, out of my hiding place and into the light of the fires. For one breathless moment, no one noticed. I kept my head down, moving along the periphery of the gathering, hoping to find Senna among the crowd. The ceremony had already begun, with young females from each pack being presented to the Alpha King and his council. Most received merely a glance before being dismissed, with a respectful nod. I had nearly reached a cluster of trees when a hush fell over the gathering. The drums, which had been a constant heartbeat, suddenly stopped. The silence was so complete that I could hear the crackle of the ceremonial fire. "Continue the presentations," a voice commanded. Deep, resonant, unquestionably powerful. The king had spoken, yet the silence persisted. I risked a glance over my shoulder and froze. Every head had turned in my direction. Every eye watched me. And at the center of it all, the Alpha King had risen to his feet, his gaze burning into mine across the distance. "You," he said, the single word carrying easily through the still night air. "Come forward." My legs wouldn't move, couldn't move. This wasn't happening. Around me, whispers began to ripple through the crowd. "Who is she?" "Is that Edmund's daughter?" "The half-shift." "Impossible." Then a familiar voice, sharp with fury. "Lyra, what are you doing here?" Morgana pushed through the crowd, her face contorted with rage and something else. Fear. "Your Majesty, please excuse this intrusion. This girl is unwell and should not be here. I'll remove her immediately." I felt her hand close around my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Shame burned through me, hot and familiar. "Release her." The command cut through the night like a blade. The Alpha King had descended from the dais and was now moving toward us, the crowd parting before him like water. Morgana's grip tightened briefly, then fell away. He stopped mere feet from where I stood, and I found myself unable to look directly at him. The power radiating from him was overwhelming, pressing against my senses. When his fingers touched my chin, tilting my face up to meet his gaze, I nearly gasped at the contact. It felt like being touched by lightning, painful and exhilarating all at once. His eyes were violet in the firelight, with rings of silver around the pupils. They widened slightly as they searched my face, something like recognition flashing in their depths. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice softer now, but no less commanding. "Lyra, Your Majesty." My voice emerged as barely a whisper. A smile touched his lips. Brief, predatory, possessive. "Lyra," he repeated as if tasting the name. Then he turned to address the stunned gathering, his hand never leaving my face. "The ceremony is concluded. I have found what I came for." The collective gasp was audible, a rush of breath like wind through leaves. I felt dizzy, untethered from reality. Your Majesty, Morgana's voice again, desperate now. There must be some mistake. Lyra is mine, he finished, the word a growl that vibrated with such authority that even Morgana fell silent. By the sacred rites, and before all witnesses, I claim this female as my mate. As the implications of his words sank in, I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was the fierce satisfaction in the Alpha King's eyes as he reached out to catch me. I awoke to unfamiliar luxury. Silk sheets against my skin, and the scent of cedarwood incense curling through the air. This wasn't my tower room, with its water stains and creaking floorboards. Then the memories rushed back. The ceremony, the crowd's whispers, the Alpha King's declaration. I sat up with a gasp, clutching the sheets to my chest. You're awake. The voice came from a corner of the room where shadows gathered despite the morning light streaming through tall windows. He stepped forward and my breath caught. In the firelight of the ceremony, the Alpha King had been intimidating. In daylight, he was devastating. Tall and broad-shouldered, he moved with the contained power of a predator, muscles shifting beneath the simple black shirt he wore. His face belonged on ancient coins, strong jaw, high cheekbones, and those eyes, violet and silver, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Where am I? I managed. My private quarters at your Pax Lodge. He moved closer. I thought you might prefer to wake somewhere quiet after last night's excitement. Last night's humiliation, he meant. I'd fainted in front of hundreds of wolves from 5 territories. There's been a mistake, I said, the words tumbling out. You can't possibly want me as your mate. His eyebrow arched. Can't I? I'm not. I can't fully shift. I'm considered defective among my own pack. I swallowed hard. You're the Alpha King. You need someone strong, someone who can stand beside you and be respected. Something dangerous flickered across his face. Are you refusing me, little wolf? The threat in his voice should have terrified me, but a strange calm settled over me instead. What more could be taken from me? I'm trying to save you from making a political mistake. I met his gaze steadily. An Alpha King with a half-shift mate would be laughed at. Your enemies would see it as weakness. He moved so quickly I barely registered it before he was there. His knee on the bed, his face inches from mine. One large hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing over my bottom lip in a gesture both tender and possessive. Let me make something very clear, Lyra, he said, my name a caress in his mouth. I have spent 17 years building an empire that stretches across 5 territories. I have crushed rebellions, unified warring packs, and established peace where there was only bloodshed. No one would dare laugh at my choice of mate, regardless of her ability to shift. His proximity was overwhelming. His scent, cedar and smoke, and something uniquely male, filling my lungs with each breath. The hand at my face slid into my hair, cradling the back of my head. Besides, he continued, his voice dropping to a rumble that I felt more than heard, you know as well as I do that there's more to this than politics. You felt it last night when our eyes met. The bond that's already forming between us. I wanted to deny it, but the lie wouldn't come. I had felt something, a recognition, a pull toward him that defied logic. Why me? I whispered. Out of all the females there. His thumb traced the line of my jaw. The moon chooses our mates, little wolf, not our rational minds. Something in you calls to the most primal part of me. His eyes darkened. Now tell me, do you feel nothing when I touch you like this? His fingers trailed down my neck to the hollow of my throat, where my mother's pendant rested. The simple touch sent shivers cascading through me, my body responding to him against all reason. I couldn't finish the sentence, too overwhelmed by sensations I'd never experienced before. A satisfied smile curved his lips. That's what I thought. He pulled back slightly, allowing me to breathe again. You'll have time to adjust to the idea, Lyra. I'm not a monster who forces himself on unwilling females. Relief and, strangely, disappointment flooded through me. So you're not really claiming me? Oh, I'm claiming you. His voice left no room for argument. But the mating ritual can wait until you're ready. In the meantime, you'll return with me to the capital and take your place as my chosen. The capital. The seat of the Alpha King's power. My stepmother has no authority over you anymore. His expression hardened, though I admit I'm curious about her reaction last night. Why would she keep you hidden from the ceremony? The old shame rose in me again. Because I'm an embarrassment. My father was an elder, respected by all. Having a daughter who can't fully shift reflected poorly on his choice of mate. My mother? Your mother? Something changed in his expression. Tell me about her. I touched my pendant instinctively. She died when I was young. She was different like me. My father loved her despite it. But after he died, there was no one left to stand up for me. Darius's eyes followed the movement of my hand. May I? He asked, gesturing to the pendant. Hesitantly, I nodded. His fingers were surprisingly gentle as he lifted the gold moon and stars, examining them closely. This symbol, he said quietly. Do you know what it means? My mother said it represented guidance in darkness, that even the smallest constellation can guide in the darkest night. A shadow passed over his face. It means more than that. He released the pendant, letting it fall back against my skin. Much more. But that's a conversation for another time. For now, you should prepare to leave. We depart for the capital at midday. The journey to the capital took 4 days, though it felt like crossing into another world entirely. I'd never ventured beyond the borders of our territory, and the changing landscapes outside the windows of the king's luxurious caravan fascinated me. Darius remained an enigma throughout. Sometimes he would sit across from me for hours, asking questions about my life, my thoughts, my small joys and sorrows. Other times he would retreat into silence, his focus turned inward. At night, he respected my space, arranging separate sleeping quarters despite the knowing glances of his guard. On the final day, as the road began to climb toward the mountain pass that would lead us to the capital, he joined me at the window. Tell me what you're thinking, he said, his voice low enough that the guards couldn't hear. I hesitated, then decided on honesty. That I don't understand why I'm here, why you chose me. His fingers brushed mine on the windowsill, the casual touch sending sparks across my skin. Is it so difficult to believe that the moon chose you for me? Yes, I admitted. I've spent my entire life being reminded of my inadequacies. To suddenly be told I'm worthy of this. I gestured vaguely at the opulence surrounding us. It feels like a mistake that will soon be corrected. Something hardened in his expression. Your stepmother has much to answer for. It wasn't just her. It was everyone. The entire pack system values strength above all else. I was a reminder that bloodlines can be diluted. His hand covered mine completely now, warm and secure. There are different kinds of strength, Lyra. The ability to endure scorn without becoming cruel yourself is rare and precious. His thumb traced circles on my wrist. Besides, your bloodline is far from diluted. It's simply different. There it was again. That hint of something he knew but wasn't sharing. Before I could press him, he nodded toward the window. Look, your first glimpse of Shadowvale City. I gasped as we crested the pass and the valley opened before us. The capital sprawled across the basin, a jewel set within the protective embrace of mountains. Stone buildings climbed the gentle slopes, their copper roofs gleaming in the afternoon sun. At the center, dominating everything, stood a massive structure of dark stone and glass that could only be the royal residence. It's beautiful, I whispered. It's home, he replied simply, and now it's yours as well. The next hours passed in a blur of introductions and formalities. So many names and faces, advisors, household staff, nobles from prominent families. I struggled to keep track of them all, grateful for Darius's steady presence at my side. Don't worry about remembering everyone, advised Isla, the female warrior who had apparently been assigned as my personal guard. Half of them are just here to assess you and report back to their respective packs. Assess me? I echoed, suddenly cold. Isla's expression was sympathetic but honest. You're an unknown element, my lady. The Alpha King has never shown interest in taking a mate before, and now he returns with you, someone no one has ever heard of from a minor northern pack. Someone defective, I added bitterly, her eyes narrowed. I wouldn't use that word where the king can hear it. He seems protective of you. Left alone in the suite of rooms that had been prepared for me, elegant chambers decorated in soothing shades of emerald and gold, I wandered in a daze. Everything was beautiful, but overwhelming. As the hour approached for dinner, I dressed in a gown of deep emerald that made my silver-white hair seem almost luminous in the lamplight. I'd just finished securing my mother's pendant around my neck when a knock came at the door. Darius stood in the corridor, changed into more formal attire that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the lean strength of his body. For a moment, he simply looked at me, something like wonder in his expression. You are breathtaking, he said finally, offering his arm. I took it, hyper-aware of the heat of him through the fine fabric of his sleeve. Thank you for the clothes and the rooms. They're beautiful. Do you like them? They can be changed if you prefer something different. No, they're perfect. I hesitated. I'm not used to having so much space to myself. His jaw tightened, a reminder of the anger he clearly still harbored toward my stepmother and pack. You'll never be confined again, Lyra. I promise you that. The small dining hall turned out to be an intimate space with a table that could seat perhaps 12, though only 2 places had been set. Candles provided most of the illumination, their golden light softening the stone walls. I thought you might prefer a quieter evening, Darius explained as he held my chair. Court dinners can be intense. Relief washed through me. Thank you. I'm not sure I'm ready to face a crowd just yet. Servants appeared with wine and the first course. As they served us, I noticed Darius watching me with that same intensity that both unnerved and thrilled me. You have questions, he said once we were alone again. I can see them in your eyes. I took a sip of wine for courage. Several hundred at least. That earned me a genuine smile. Start with one. I considered carefully. At the lodge, you recognized my pendant. You said it meant more than I knew. What did you mean? His expression grew serious again. Direct and perceptive. I like that about you. He set down his fork. The symbol on your pendant, the full moon embracing 3 stars, is the mark of the Starweavers. An ancient line of wolves with abilities beyond the physical. Starweavers? The word felt strange on my tongue. I've never heard of them. Few have these days. They were thought to have died out generations ago. His gaze was steady on mine. They were advisors to kings, mediators between packs, healers of both body and spirit. Their power wasn't in their physical shift, but in their connection to the moon itself, to the magic that governs all wolves. I frowned, struggling to understand. And you think my mother was one of these Starweavers? I know she was. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing the pendant. This is no ordinary jewelry. It's a focus stone, passed from one Starweaver to the next. Your mother must have known what you would become when she gave it to you. The room seemed to tilt around me. But that's impossible. I can barely shift at all. I have no special abilities. Don't you? His voice was gentle. Haven't you ever known things you shouldn't know? Felt the emotions of others as if they were your own? Found animals strangely drawn to you? Or plants flourishing under your care? My breath caught. Small moments throughout my life suddenly aligned in a new pattern. The injured hawk that had sought me out in the forest. The withered garden that had bloomed again after I'd spent days tending it. The uncanny way I sometimes knew what others were feeling before they spoke. These are minor manifestations, Darius continued. The full extent of a Starweaver's abilities typically emerges after their 22nd year, often triggered by significant emotional events. His expression darkened. Your stepmother may have suspected what you are. It would explain her determination to keep you isolated, especially from ceremonies connected to the moon. But why would she fear such a thing? I whispered. Power, little wolf. Starweavers held tremendous influence in the old days. Some alphas resented it, especially those whose rule was questionable. He leaned forward. Your 22nd birthday. When is it? 4 weeks from now, I admitted, a shiver running through me. Something like satisfaction gleamed in his eyes. The autumn equinox. Perfect timing. For what? For you to come into your heritage. He reached for my hand, his thumb caressing my palm. And for our mating ceremony. The world narrowed to the point where our skin touched, heat spiraling up my arm. You still want that? Even knowing what I might be? Lyra. My name was a caress in his mouth. I want it precisely because of what you are. Do you understand what it would mean? An Alpha King mated to a Starweaver. It hasn't happened in centuries. Together we could unite the territories in ways no one has managed before. There was passion in his voice, vision and ambition. But something else too. Something that made me withdraw my hand. Is that why you chose me? I asked quietly. For political advantage? Darius stilled, his expression suddenly unreadable. Is that what you think? I think you recognized my pendant at the ceremony. I think you knew what it meant before you ever claimed me as your mate. The pieces were falling into place now. You weren't drawn to me by fate or the moon. You saw an opportunity. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window where moonlight spilled across the stone floor. For a long moment he was silent, his back to me, shoulders rigid with tension. Yes, he said finally. I recognized the pendant. Yes, I understood what it might mean. He turned to face me, his eyes almost glowing in the dim light. But if you believe that's the only reason I claimed you, you understand nothing. In 3 long strides he was before me, pulling me to my feet with gentle insistence. One hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. I have spent 17 years building peace through strength and fear, he said, his voice low and intense. 17 years watching my back, trusting no one completely, making the hard choices necessary to prevent the territories from descending back into war. Do you think I would bind myself for life to someone just for political advantage? His thumb traced my lower lip, his eyes following the movement with hunger that made my breath catch. The moment I saw you at the edge of that clearing, trying so hard to be invisible, something in me recognized something in you. Call it fate, call it the moon's will, call it what you like. But it was real, Lyra. As real as this. He lowered his head slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his lips brushed mine. A question, not a demand. And despite my doubts, despite the voice of caution screaming in my mind, I answered by pressing closer, my hands finding purchase in the fabric of his shirt. The kiss deepened, gentle exploration giving way to something more primal, as his arms encircled me completely. I felt the rumble of a growl in his chest as my fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer still. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had shifted. More wolf than human now, the violet darkened to molten amethyst. Political advantage, he said roughly, his forehead resting against mine. Is that what this feels like to you? I couldn't lie, not with his scent surrounding me, not with the echo of his kiss still on my lips. No, I whispered. It feels like drowning and flying at the same time. His smile was slow and satisfied. Good. Remember that feeling, little wolf. It's the truth between us, whatever else you may doubt. The next 4 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. As word spread of my imminent official union with the Alpha King, dignitaries and pack leaders from across the 5 territories began arriving at the palace. I was assigned tutors who attempted to cram years of court protocol into days, dress fittings that left me exhausted, and endless introductions to people whose names blurred together. Throughout it all, Darius appeared and disappeared like a phantom, sometimes stealing me away for private moments in the palace gardens, but often consumed by the business of ruling. I'm sorry, he said one evening, finding me alone on the balcony of my chambers, staring at the moon that grew fuller each night. This isn't how I wanted your first weeks here to be. I turned to him, taking in the shadows beneath his eyes, the tension that never quite left his shoulders. "You're a king. I understand that comes with responsibilities." He moved to stand beside me, close enough that our arms brushed. "Still, I've thrown you into deep waters and left you to swim." "I'm stronger than I look," I reminded him, surprising myself with how true it felt. Something in my tone made him smile. "Yes, you are." His hand found mine, our fingers intertwining naturally now. "How are the dreams?" The dreams had started 2 weeks after our arrival. Vivid, disorienting visions that left me gasping awake in the darkest hours of night. Sometimes I saw ancient ceremonies beneath open skies. Sometimes battles where wolves and humans fought side by side. Sometimes quiet moments between mothers and daughters as they passed down knowledge in whispered words. More intense, I admitted. Last night I dreamed of a circle of women standing in moonlight, their hands joined. They were singing, but I couldn't understand the words. Darius nodded, unsurprised. "Your abilities are awakening as we approach the equinox. The dreams are memories, not your own, but those of Starweavers before you." "How do you know so much about this?" I asked. "My grandmother was the last known Alpha to be advised by a Starweaver. Before she died, she made me promise to watch for the signs of their return." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "She believed the fractured territories would never find true peace without the balance they provided." "Is that why you've worked so hard to visit every regional ceremony for the past decade? You were looking for a Starweaver?" He turned to face me fully, his free hand coming up to brush a strand of hair from my face. "I was looking for hope," he said simply. "I found you instead." The tenderness in his voice made my heart ache. In these quiet moments, it was easy to forget the doubts that still plagued me. "What if I'm not what you think?" I whispered. "What if the dreams are just dreams, and I never develop these abilities you expect?" His expression remained steady. "Then you will still be Lyra. The woman who faces each new challenge with quiet courage. The woman who has brought light back into rooms that have been dark for too long." His lips quirked. "The woman who still refuses to let me win at chess despite the fact that I'm her king?" I laughed despite myself. "You're terrible at chess. Your strategies are all brute force. No finesse." "So you keep telling me." His smile faded slowly, his expression growing serious again. "Lyra, I need you to know something before the ceremony. Whatever abilities you develop or don't develop, whatever political advantages come from our union, they're secondary. Chose you. I continue to choose you every day." The sincerity in his eyes made it hard to breathe. Slowly, deliberately, I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his, initiating our kiss for the first time. His response was immediate, arms encircling me as he deepened the contact, a growl of approval rumbling through his chest. When we broke apart, his eyes had shifted again, the wolf close to the surface. "You make it very difficult to maintain my promise to wait until after the ceremony," he murmured against my neck. I shivered at the sensation of his breath on my skin. "Perhaps that's my intention." His laugh was strained. "Temptress, but some traditions are worth honoring." With visible effort, he stepped back, creating distance between us. 4 more days, little wolf. Then nothing will separate us again. The night before the autumn equinox, I couldn't sleep. My chambers felt too confined, the air too still. I slipped from my bed and threw a cloak over my nightdress, padding barefoot through the quiet corridors of the palace. Guards nodded respectfully as I passed, but made no move to stop me. My wandering led me to the palace archives, a vast room filled with ancient texts and scrolls. Now, drawn by some instinct I couldn't name, I moved among the shelves until I found a section that seemed older than the rest. One volume in particular caught my attention, a slender book bound in pale gold leather, its spine unmarked. When I opened it, the pages were filled with handwritten text in an elegant flowing script, accompanied by intricate drawings of moons in various phases, herbs and ritual circles. "A Starweaver's journal," a voice said from the shadows, startling me so badly I nearly dropped the book. An elderly woman emerged from between the stacks, her silver hair braided elaborately, her posture still proud despite her advanced years. I recognized her vaguely from court functions. Lady Elowen, Darius's great-aunt, and one of his most trusted advisors. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "I didn't mean to intrude." "No intrusion. I've been waiting for you, in fact." She gestured to the book in my hands. "That belonged to my mother, the last royal starweaver. I thought you might find your way to it eventually." I stared at her in confusion. "Your mother was a starweaver?" "The gift doesn't always pass from mother to daughter," she explained. "It can skip generations or lie dormant if conditions aren't right." Her shrewd eyes assessed me. "Your mother was from the Eastern Territories originally, wasn't she?" I nodded, surprised. "How did you know?" "The pendant. It belongs to the Eastern branch of Starweavers, who specialized in healing and dreamwalking." She reached out, her fingers hovering near the gold moon without touching it. "I never developed the gifts myself, but I recognized the signs in you. The dreams have started, haven't they?" "Yes," I admitted. "And other things. Yesterday I knew a servant was coming to my door before she knocked. The day before, I felt Darius's anger from 3 rooms away during a council meeting." Lady Elowen nodded, satisfied. "Your abilities are awakening naturally, which is good. Some Starweavers required ritual intervention at the transition." She nodded to the book. "Take it. It belongs to you now, more than to our family archives." As I accepted the journal, a question that had been burning in me for weeks finally found voice. Why didn't anyone tell me what I was? My mother must have known. But she never said anything before she died. My father kept her pendant safe for me, but he never explained its significance. Sadness flickered across the old woman's face. Fear, child. After the last Great War, Starweavers were hunted by those who blamed them for influencing pack alliances. Many went into hiding, concealing their abilities and teaching their daughters to do the same. She touched my shoulder gently. Your mother must have hoped you could live a normal life, that the gift would remain dormant in you. But it didn't, I whispered. No, and perhaps that's for the best. The territories need balance again. Her expression grew solemn. Darius is a good king, but he rules through strength alone. That path leads eventually to rebellion or stagnation. I clutched the journal tighter. And I'm supposed to provide this balance? I barely understand what I am. Lady Elowen's smile was surprisingly gentle. You will learn. The knowledge is in your blood, in your dreams. And now, she nodded to the book, in your hands. Before I could ask more questions, a commotion erupted somewhere in the distance, shouts and the sound of running feet. Lady Elowen's expression sharpened. What is it? I asked, suddenly cold with apprehension. Intruders in the East Wing. Her eyes met mine, urgent now. Go to your chambers and bar the door. Guards will come for you. I hesitated, reluctant to leave her alone. Go, child. The future queen cannot be found wandering unprotected when the palace is under threat. The future queen. The title still felt foreign, but the responsibility it implied propelled me into motion. I clutched the journal to my chest and hurried back through the corridors, my bare feet silent on the stone floors. As I neared my chambers, the sounds of conflict grew louder, snarls and crashes, the unmistakable noises of wolves fighting in enclosed spaces. I had just reached my door when a figure lunged from a side passage, blocking my path. For one terrified moment, I thought it was an attacker. Then I recognized the face twisted in hatred and triumph. Morgana, I gasped. My stepmother's smile was cruel. Hello, Lyra. How convenient to find you alone. Behind her, 2 male wolves emerged, their forms half-shifted, claws extended and teeth bared. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. What are you doing here? Correcting a mistake? Morgana hissed. Did you really think I would allow you to become queen? A half-shift nobody who should have been drowned at birth. The venom in her voice was familiar, but the desperation behind it was new. The Alpha King chose me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You can't change that. Can't I? She stepped closer. A mating bond requires both parties to be alive. Little aberration. If you were to die tragically before the ceremony, she shrugged, the gesture chillingly casual. The king would mourn, of course, but eventually he would choose again. Perhaps someone more suitable. One of her daughters, she meant. The pieces clicked into place. Morgana's frantic efforts to keep me hidden, her rage when Darius had chosen me instead. It had never been about protecting the pack's reputation. It had been about her own ambitions all along. "You won't get away with this," I said, continuing to back away. "Darius will know it was you." "Will he? With the palace in chaos from this convenient border dispute we've arranged? I think not." She nodded to the men behind her. "Take her. Make it look like she was caught in the crossfire." They lunged forward. In that moment of pure terror, something shifted inside me. Not a physical transformation, but a deepening awareness, as if a veil had been lifted from my senses. I could feel the moon above the palace, its energy streaming through stone and wood to reach me. I could feel the heartbeats of every person in the corridor, the pulse of their emotions. Fear, hatred, bloodlust. Without conscious thought, my hand found my mother's pendant. As my fingers closed around the gold, a pulse of energy radiated outward, knocking my attackers back as surely as a physical blow. Morgana staggered, her expression shifting from triumph to confusion to fear. "What?" "I am not what you think I am," I said, my voice resonating strangely in the corridor. "I never was." The pendant grew warm against my palm, and with that warmth came knowledge. Ancient words rising from somewhere deep within me. I spoke them without understanding their meaning, feeling their power shape the air around us. The two male wolves dropped to their knees, clutching their heads in obvious pain. Morgana remained standing, but her face had gone pale with terror. "Starweaver," she whispered, the word a curse and a recognition. "Yes." The confirmation felt right, settling into me like a final puzzle piece clicking into place. "Now leave this place and never return. If you do, I'll know. I'll always know." I wasn't sure if it was my words or the power behind them that convinced her. But Morgana backed away, grabbing her fallen companions and dragging them with her. As they disappeared down the corridor, the strange energy that had filled me ebbed, leaving me shaking and disoriented. I barely made it into my chambers before my legs gave out, sending me crumpling to the floor. The journal fell from my grasp, pages splaying open to reveal a drawing that mirrored exactly what I had just done. A female figure with a pendant radiating lines of power that pushed back advancing wolves. "Lyra!" Darius's voice reached me moments before he did, bursting through my door with Isla and several guards behind him. His expression was wild, panic giving way to relief as he saw me alive. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, still too overwhelmed to speak. He gathered me against his chest, his heartbeat rapid beneath my ear. "There was an attack," he explained urgently, "a coordinated effort to breach the palace defenses. When I couldn't find you—" "Morgana," I managed to say. "She was here. She tried to kill me." A growl rumbled through him so deep I felt it in my bones. "Where is she now?" "Gone. I stopped her." I pulled back enough to see his face. "What you said would happen. I felt the power. I used it." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by a fierce pride that took my breath away. "Tell me." I did, haltingly at first, then with growing confidence as I recounted the confrontation and the surge of energy that had protected me. As I spoke, his expression shifted from concern to wonder. "The equinox isn't until tomorrow," he murmured, but threat and necessity must have triggered the change early. His fingers brushed my cheek reverently. "How do you feel?" How did I feel? Changed, certainly. More aware of everything around me, of the connections between all living things. But also unexpectedly more myself than I had ever been, as if I'd finally stepped into a role I'd been rehearsing for all my life without knowing it. "Complete," I said simply. His smile was everything, pride and love and a hunger that matched the awakening desire in my own blood. "My queen," he whispered, the title no longer a formal designation, but an acknowledgement of what I had become. The equinox ceremony the next day was both more and less than I had anticipated. More because as I stood beneath the open sky, surrounded by representatives from all 5 territories, I could feel their emotions like currents in the air. Curiosity, skepticism, hope, fear. My newfound sensitivity made every moment vibrant with information, overwhelming at times, but also exhilarating. Less because, in the end, the elaborate ritual came down to something very simple. Darius and I standing face to face in the sacred circle, declaring our choice before gods and mortals alike. "I choose you," he said, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering. "Not for what you are, or what you might become, but for who you are. I choose your courage, your compassion, your quiet strength. I choose to stand beside you, to protect you, to honor you as my equal and my mate from this day until my last." The traditional words spoken with such personal conviction that tears prickled at my eyes. When my turn came, I found the formal phrases inadequate. "I choose you," I began, then abandoned the script. "I choose the man who saw me when I was hidden, who recognized worth in me when I had forgotten it myself. I choose your vision and your determination, your hidden gentleness and your open strength. I choose to stand beside you, to balance you, to walk with you in darkness and in light from this day until my last." As the final words left my lips, the mating bond snapped into place between us. Not a chain, as I had once feared, but a bridge, a connection that enhanced rather than diminished who we were separately. I gasped at the sensation, at the sudden awareness of Darius, not just before me, but within me. His emotions as clear as my own. His eyes widened, telling me he felt the same unprecedented connection. Later, I would learn that this too was unique to Starweaver matings, a bond deeper than the physical, a sharing of spirit as well as body. The feast that followed was a blur of faces and voices, of congratulations and pledges of loyalty. I found myself watching the gathering with new eyes, seeing beyond words to the emotions that drove them. Most of the visiting dignitaries regarded me with cautious optimism, their initial skepticism giving way to respect as they observed Darius's obvious devotion and my own quiet confidence. Lady Elowen found me during a rare moment alone, her eyes bright with satisfaction. "You've already begun to change things," she murmured, nodding toward a group of rival pack leaders who were engaged in surprisingly cordial conversation. "They can feel it, even if they don't understand what they're feeling." "The balance you mentioned?" I asked. She nodded. "Darius brought them together through strength and necessity. You'll bind them through understanding and compassion." Her gnarled hand covered mine briefly. "Together, you'll create something that hasn't existed in generations. True peace." As the celebration continued around us, I found my gaze drawn again and again to Darius, feeling the pull of our new bond like a physical tether. When our eyes met across the crowded hall, I knew he felt it too. The need to be alone, to complete what had begun in the sacred circle. Much later, in the privacy of the chambers we would now share, I stood before the window, watching the full moon cast silver light across the sleeping city. Darius's arms encircled me from behind, his chin resting on top of my head. "Having regrets?" he asked softly. I leaned back against him, savoring his warmth and strength. "None." I turned in his arms to face him, even knowing the challenges ahead, the responsibilities, especially knowing those things. I spent my whole life being told I was too weak, too different to have value. My hand found his cheek. "You showed me that my difference is my strength. How could I regret embracing that?" His smile was slow and intimate in the moonlight. "My wise queen." "You're equal," I corrected gently. "Always." He drew me closer, his lips finding mine with familiar hunger, now tempered with tenderness. Through our bond, I could feel his emotions intertwining with my own. Desire and protectiveness, fierce joy, and something deeper still. A love that had grown from recognition to choice to unshakable commitment. As we moved together toward the bed, I thought of the frightened girl I had been, locked in a tower and convinced of her own worthlessness. If I could speak to her across time, I would tell her to hold on, to trust the light within herself, even when all others denied it. I would tell her that being different didn't mean being broken, that her true strength lay not in what she could or couldn't do, but in who she chose to be despite it all. I had been hidden, denied, dismissed, and still the Alpha King had seen me, had chosen me, and in being chosen, I had finally found the courage to choose myself.